Welcome to See You on the Other Side, where the world of the mysterious collides with the world of entertainment. A discussion of art, music, movies, spirituality, the weird, and self-discovery. And now, your hosts, musicians and entertainers who have their own weakness for the weird, Mike and Wendy from the band Sunspot.
See You on the Other Side, episode 244. We're talking about the most famous cathedral in the world, and that's the Cathedral Notre Dame de Paris, which in English means Our Lady of Paris.
Right.
So that's why there's so many other churches named Notre Dame, because it means Our Lady of. So you have like Notre Dame. We could have Notre Dame de Milwaukee, and it'd be like you, Allison, Our Lady of Milwaukee.
I know, that's me. You got it.
We're joined today by my sister, Allison Jorlin, from Milwaukee Ghosts. Wendy is currently drumming away in California this week, and she's at a drum camp. Hopefully, hear all about that. So today, we got to talk about the big fire that happened on April 15th. It was all over the news and all over social media, and that's the fire of Notre Dame in Paris.
Yeah, I mean, it was just such a huge shock. Mike, didn't you go there about 10 years ago?
Yes, of course. I visited Notre Dame, and we'll have pictures in the show notes. I went through and saw the beautiful rose windows and some of the relics. And I took lots of pictures of gargoyles.
Yes, they have some of the best, or they did anyway, have some of the best gargoyles. They are made of stone, so I'm hoping they're okay, but their fate is unknown, whereas some of the other treasures have been saved, thankfully. But it was just devastating to see that, especially since I haven't been there yet. You have, but yeah, I've never been in France.
Well, Notre Dame is beautiful. It's huge. It's gorgeous. It really is something else. But the thing is, I think why people were so affected by it is number one, Paris, I think, is the most popular city in the world to visit. So I think tens of millions of people visit Paris every year. And one of the things you visit when you're there is you're going to see the Cathedral at Notre Dame. And, it really is a big deal now. It's on especially Catholic bucket lists. They want to see the most famous church in the world besides the Vatican.
Right.
That's going to be there. And but the thing is, it wasn't always this exciting. It wasn't always a big tourist spot and things like that. When you go back, it was the cathedral's originally built in 1160, was when they first started putting it up. And then it was just going to be the church in Paris, the cathedral. It was just a average style Gothic cathedral.
Your average, just your average Gothic cathedral.
Well,
Nothing
it did take
special.
it took like 120 years to build. So, that is crazy that it took so long to build. And it's one of many beautiful churches in France in the Middle Ages. And it really, even during the French Revolution, like the revolutionaries, whatever, the Robespierre and the Reign of Terror, they take over the cathedral. They get rid of the Catholic Church.
Wow.
The cathedral ends up becoming like the main temple to their. They had something called the Cult of Reason. And it wasn't. You think the Cult of Reason is going to be Richard Dawkins' religion, right? Because it's an atheist anti-clerical cult solidified into official government policy in 1792 of the First French Republic. So after they chopped off Louis XVI's head and they killed his wife Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake, chop. Then what happens is you have the cult of reason, and it's because the Catholic Church, while it does many wonderful things for people around the world and charities and stuff like that, also can be somewhat corrupt.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when I was talking today with people about the relics while I was doing research on all the treasures that were inside of Notre Dame, there was a lot of animosity there that this is fakery just to bring people into the churches, that, these relics, they don't really have any history behind them, or any provenance to support what they're supposed to be. Like somebody said to me, if you put all the pieces of the true cross together, you'd have a forest.
Right. And for you guys who are wondering what the true cross is, the true cross is supposed to be wood from the actual cross that Jesus was crucified on.
Yeah, and we're coming up right on Easter, so it's right on time. But when you were in Paris, you took the Mysteries of Paris ghost tour there, and you were telling me, I recall, that Parisians, or at least the guide told you that Parisians don't really believe in ghosts. Is that right?
Yeah, that was one of the things. Actually, so the guide is a real interesting character. I follow him on Instagram still. Met him like 10 years ago. And then we had a great time. We really hit it off. His name was Father Sebastian with 2 A's.
Still around.
He's still around. And he's a professional fang maker.
That's a job. You could be a fang maker.
And he makes beautiful fangs for people who want to look like vampires. And this stuff's really great. His Instagram is awesome because it's always...
He makes beautiful fangs for beautiful women.
It is. It's like hot chicks with fangs.
That's what you see on his Instagram anyway.
Right. It really is funny because, that's your career. It's like, what do you do? I'll make fangs for hot chicks. All right.
Right.
All right. Well, I didn't know that was... If my counselor in high school told me that making fangs for hot chicks was a job possibility,
you would have been right on that.
I would have studied something completely different.
Well, so apparently they don't believe in ghosts. There are some ghost stories we're going to talk about, so don't tune out.
Right.
But I want to hear this, Mike. So what did Father Sebastian tell you?
But they did say that, it almost was like that modern Parisians are much more like Jean-Paul Sartre, where they're just atheists that think the idea of the dead coming back to life and visiting us is silly. And I heard that on the Iceland ghost tour too, as well. And the guy,
yes, but they believe in elves in Iceland.
It's too crazy to believe in ghosts, but not too
but
crazy.
Not elves. They're everywhere.
Not elves, obviously. No, but so that's what they said. He said, but we were able to come up with a lot of great ghost stories from history, and they did have. It was a lot of fun. But that's the thing. When you think that they took over the Notre Dame, the cathedral, in 1792 to make an atheist religion, to make a cathedral for an atheist religion, and like kick out all the priests and stuff.
How does that work?
The French do have a reputation, for philosophical extremism, let's say.
Yeah.
And the revolution, obviously everybody is off with their heads, and the Catholic bureaucracy had obviously...
Well, you can understand why they hated that.
Well, yeah, and they obviously contributed somewhat to... You'd see cardinals and bishops living like kings. And
yeah, and the corruption, extreme corruption is the reason for the backlash and how extreme that was.
So, and you see that people even talking about it on social media, because I'd say like 80% of the responses I saw to the fire, and when the spire fell, it really was like, oh man, that really does look like it even conjures up 9/11. And that was terrorism was one of the first things I thought of when you saw the spire fall. But
right.
but that was because somebody in 2016, they found a truck with a case of like explosives outside of Notre Dame. So they foiled a terrorist attack in Paris 2 years ago, intending on starting fire to the building. And then there was just if you guys watch the Jack Ryan show on Amazon Prime with Jim from The Office as Jack Ryan, you wouldn't think that Jim from The Office could be an action hero, but he's actually a fairly believable action hero. And he obviously bulked up, like he's roided out. But they do an attack on a cathedral in Paris. In the Jack Ryan, that was the first thing I thought of was a terrorist attack, and it looks like it's nothing like that, which is good. that people aren't trying to
let's
kill
hope
each other, right?
Yeah.
That's the first thing. It's good that people aren't trying to kill each other. So I saw 80% of the reaction that I saw on social media was sadness because so many people had been there. Like people were writing on Facebook, things I learned today. Number one, how many of my friends have been to Notre Dame? Number two, what they had to eat for lunch was the things that people were writing on their updates. And so everybody was putting the picture of themselves in front of that great cathedral. And I mean, it's a great place to take pictures. Gothic architecture. I mean, there's something, it looks good on film. It looks good on film.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of Gothic, there are some ghost stories that we need to talk about. And so I was really shocked because one of the stories that I think that Father Sebastian told you, because I found a little bit of it online, and then I see Mysterious Universe has an article on it just published last night, and it talks about a woman who came to visit the cathedral in 1882. Do you remember this from the tour so long ago?
Well, that was 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and we were partying. And I went, after the ghost tour, we all went out for Chinese, and then we went to a fetish bar, and it was a crazy.
Okay.
You should have seen the costumes.
TMI.
They know what they're doing in
Okay.
Paris.
Gay Perry, TMI. So, all right, so I'll refresh you. In 1882, there's a woman. She wants to climb one of the towers, and she is not allowed because she's not accompanied by anyone. She's unchaperoned.
Also, she wants to climb one of the towers, though. That's not just you just let somebody climb your tower.
Yeah, well, it was something that they did. There are stairs up to some of the towers where the gargoyles are and stuff like that. I have a picture of one of my friends taken with one of the gargoyles. So I imagine that's what she wanted, is just to go up those stairs, but she wasn't accompanied. And, she's like, this is like a high point of the visit, and people would go do this, but she wasn't allowed. She was turned away by the guards because she was unchaperoned.
Well, I wasn't allowed either to go up there.
Oh, all right.
So
well, it was probably for different reasons.
It was closed when we were there. At that time, it was only open one time a week, and so we couldn't get up. I mean, I still get some great shots of the gargoyles, but we couldn't get up into the towers just because they weren't letting people up at that time. So
this unnamed young lady, she apparently, according to local version of the tale, found an elderly woman to accompany her to the top. So I don't know why it's not okay for one woman to go, but it's okay for two women to go. I'm not really sure on that. But when she reached the top, she threw herself off over the railing and was impaled on some spikes on the main floor.
She's not really doing a lot for women. There's a reason we don't send them up there unchaperoned.
Yeah. Well, the chaperone didn't do much to help her anyway.
What was the old lady going to do? Reach out and hold her?
I don't know, but what's the point of a chaperone if you can't do anything? So it's kind of a spectacular death to imagine. And her ghost has often been witnessed near the tower's gargoyles or wandering around the top of the tower. Now, that was really a good one for me because it involves two women. And I read elsewhere that there have been two female ghosts seen in the cathedral. And so then I was really, really excited to see that I found an article about another suicide there.
Oh, yeah.
Which involved another two women that happened in 1964.
Jesus, are we letting women up unchaperoned at the tower over and over again?
Yeah, why are women drawn to commit suicide there? So this is what happened. Paris death fall also kills tourist. This was from the Toledo Blade, October 2nd, 1964. All right, October 2nd, authorities reported that a woman jumped or fell from the Notre Dame Cathedral today and struck an American tourist passing by. Both were fatally injured, they said. Police verified the American was Veronica McConnell, 21, from Pennsylvania. No further address was given.
Oh my God, you're a 21-year-old girl. You get to go to Paris for the first time. and then somebody jumps off the tower at Notre Dame and kills you.
Yeah, so I'm kind of wondering now if this is something that I should continue searching, like Notre Dame suicide, and see how many we have involving 2 women.
Well, they even talk about in the Mysterious Universe article, there's 2 more suicides.
Well, there's actually 1 suicide, and the other guy just died while playing the organ.
Oh, well, like who can blame him?
He just went out in a big way.
Yeah, like I wonder if he like waited for like a certain chord to go. He's like, oh man, when I hit the A, when I hit the A major, whatever, it's gonna be big. I'm gonna hit the octave all the way on the top key, and I'm gonna expire.
I'm just gonna drop dead. It's like even better than like the mic drop.
That well, obviously, well that's what you remember G.G. Allen. He was in the band called the Toilet Rockers that was arrested in Milwaukee.
No, I don't remember that. But go ahead and regale me.
G.G. Allen, they made a movie about him called Hated, the G.G. Allen Story. Todd Phillips, who directed the Hangover movies. That was his original work. And G.G. Allen was just, he was a rocker who wanted to be as offensive as possible. And his band was called the Toilet Rockers and the Murder Junkies. And he always said that he was going to kill himself on stage. But heroin did it first.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, where G.G. Allen failed, this guy succeeded, dying on stage at Notre Dame, because he's like, my career goes downhill from here. Boom.
Yeah, just last week there was a UK comedian who actually died of a fatal heart attack on stage. They thought it was part of the bit.
Oh yeah, like people they were like clapping along and they were going along with it for a couple of minutes. That'd be like when Red Fox was playing Sanford and Son, whatever. Like if he actually had a heart attack, it was like, oh, here comes the big one. I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you, Elizabeth. And then he just died. He did die. He eventually did die while they were taping his show.
Really?
It wasn't Sanford and Son, but it was the Royal. Oh, it was something. It wasn't very good. It wasn't as good as Sanford and Son. But yeah, he died while they were shooting it.
Wow.
So he did. He went on stage too.
So this organist that died was Louis Verne, I think you say it. It's probably, my pronunciation's probably so wrong.
You don't. I mean, obviously the French don't care if we mispronounce their words.
Let me just
They're
say,
not sensitive at all.
I'm very sorry. I'm very, very sorry. So it was. Yes, I deserve 1,000 lashes. So 1937 is when he expired while playing the Cathedral organ. And the other suicide, here's another name that's going to be pretty hard. Maria Antoinetta Rivias Mercado Castellanos.
I feel like if you say that, I feel like if you say it in as offensive an accent as possible, it makes it okay. Maria Castellanos Mercado, or something like that. People send they're just like, hey, he sounds like Alex Trebek when Alex Trebek asks a Jeopardy question.
She was a Mexican intellectual, writer, feminist, and arts patron who was scorned by a lover in Paris and shot herself at the altar of the cathedral. Another dramatic way to go out.
I was going to say, these feminists aren't doing much for the cause. He broke my heart. I'm like, I'll show him.
This is an article with some, pretty dramatic stuff. Thank you, Paul Seaburn. But then there's also another story of some cursed ironwork. The doors of Notre Dame have this incredibly intricate ironwork, and apparently the person who, the artisan, let's say, who was asked to do that, got very, very frustrated, and his name was like Biscornet, I believe.
Yeah.
Again, I apologize for my pronunciation.
Biscornet.
He got so frustrated that he called out in his just utter disgust at trying to get this done on time, and he actually asked for the devil's help to get the job done.
Now, does that work? Because you hear about it, all these people making a deal with the devil. Oh yeah, Robert Johnson went to the crossroads, made a deal with the devil, sold his soul. Other Paganini sold his soul so he can play so fast. Biscornet now he sells his soul so he can finish his ironwork. Look, I've been in some places where I needed help bad, and I called out to anybody, and nobody showed up like, hey, I'll help you finish this, and it's going to be awesome. All I need is your soul. I'd be like, here you go.
Right, you've been ripe for the picking for years now.
Yeah, so this is why I don't believe in selling their soul.
On the job. Beelzebub, wake up!
Right?
Anyway, when the doors were unveiled, they were stuck shut, though. So this was a problem, and they tried everything. And I think, like Father Sebastian says, they tried oil, they tried this thing and that thing. And they weren't able to get the doors to open. And then a priest, got this idea that, hey, maybe what it requires is let's sprinkle some holy water on it. And when that happened, the doors opened. And, ever since they've been known as the cursed doors, Paul Seaborn's report here says that just by sprinkling that holy water, the artisan was freed from his satanic compact. Oh, I didn't know. We just need to get a bottle of holy water from the church. We can sell our soul every 5 minutes.
But did you read?
And then just douse ourselves.
Did you read this though? That the name Biscornet sounds like a play on words. Bis means two in French, and cornet, like a coronet means horn.
Oh,
so
nice.
His name was Billy Two Horns or whatever.
Right.
And so it was done by the guy named Billy Two Horns. Not Billy, obviously, but that's like his nickname. So saying the name Biscornet is like a play on this idea that he was the devil.
Yeah, but on the other hand, we know that the Manu Cornuta from our good friend, that's not a satanic symbol, right? The thing is used by rock musicians now.
Oh yeah,
Ronnie James Dio. Well, I don't know. That's probably a bad example.
I was gonna say
he's pretty evil, but
I mean, his live album is called like Dream Evil.
What was that?
His live album is called like Dream Evil.
Okay, well, I kind of backed myself into a corner here, but his Italian grandmother wasn't probably evil. The it's just the bull's horns. It's not supposed to be satanic horns,
right? But
so it didn't say what kind of horns these were.
But it's a cool legend anyway. This idea that only holy water could open the doors.
Yeah, like if you wanted a moral tale, I think you could pick a better one, because it's like, what are you telling kids if you're just like, little sprinkle of holy water, you'll be okay. It's like, put some butter on it. No, put some holy water on it. You'll be okay.
No, I don't buy that part of the story.
That's not a lesson for you kids.
It also says that, you know what? You can sell your soul to the devil and you just get out of it real easy. Like, I don't like it because then we'd just be selling our soul all the time. Like, I'd sell my soul every other week. And you figure the devil would stop offering sweet deals after a while if he keeps getting screwed out of souls. Yeah,
absolutely. And the other thing, so we've got these ghosts there, and we've got these cursed doors, but we've also got some holy relics, which I did not know about, and I think that's great. As we mentioned before, there's a piece of the true cross, but how authentic that is, how do you tell? There's also supposed to be a nail from the crucifixion, that at least one. And the big ticket item is the crown of thorns that Jesus wore. I wonder what kind of folklore that has behind it. It's got to have some. It's like, because when you think of that spear that was used to poke his side by the Roman centurion, the spear of destiny. I mean, it's been said that Hitler was after that for, some kind of powers that it would confer to the holder. Well, what about the crown of thorns? That's got to have some hefty spiritual mojo. And thankfully, everybody, that has been saved. It's over at the Louvre.
Did you see the Onion article that had Jesus rushing into the burning building and said, like, out of my way, I got to get my crown? It was good. Like,
no,
it's like Jesus, like telling the firefighters to back off. He's like, God, I got to get in there. My crown's on fire.
Yeah. So, this practice of holding relics is a Catholic thing, and it's, a lot of people think it's kind of weird because, not in this case that I know of, but in other big churches and even some smaller ones like that we have here in Milwaukee, they have relics.
Like saints' bones.
Pieces of the saints. Yeah.
Yeah, I went
over at Marquette University, they actually have bits of Jacques Marquette that they went to his grave and they dug up a little box of his bits and somebody did and sent it to Marquette University.
I went to go see the body of Saint Maria Goretti when she came into Madison.
Oh, was it? Oh, that's right. I went to go see her too.
Yeah.
That's the Incorruptible.
Yes.
I forgot all about that.
Yeah, so you went to, I went to go see a saint come in their body. And there's like a little card they give you to talk about the history and some suggested prayers you could say. I mean, this whole idea of relics, it's a very Catholic thing. In fact, one of the things during the fight versus the Catholics versus the Protestants in Paris that happened like in the 16th century, the Catholics versus the Huguenots. And when they were,
you just wanted to say Huguenot.
Who doesn't want to say Huguenot? I don't even know if I'm saying it right because I've only read the word. I don't think I've ever actually heard someone say the word Huguenot in a conversation.
Well, you haven't lived. Then.
Well, because I don't have that many discussions with people, about the Reign of Terror or whatever. Even though I wish I could. But the thing is that they went in, the Protestants went into Notre Dame and they destroyed some relics there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And that was before, actually, the Crown of Thorns was at Notre Dame. You see, the Crown of Thorns was given to like Louis IX in the 13th century. And so Louis IX built a whole place called the Sainte-Chapelle, a different church to receive it. So he built a special church to receive the Crown of Thorns, and the relic would stay there. And it stayed there for 500 years. And so after the French Revolution, it was in like the French National Library, and then eventually they gave it back to the church because the cult of reason. Eventually, the people, they wanted their religion back. And so, what happened after the French Revolution? Eventually, the people who did the revolution, they get killed too. It goes over and over again. There's some more, the Bourbon Kings happen. And then that all leads to the rise of Napoleon, who says he's going to make France great again and take over the entire continent. And it works for a while. Like Napoleon, I mean, those Napoleonic wars were big. A lot of people died. In France, they took over the pyramids.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's where we got the Rosetta Stone. But yeah, like these relics, they're such powerful items of faith for people. Like even those cards that you're talking about when we went to go see that incorruptible body. Well, the idea of an incorruptible is this person so holy that they never decay, that they remain pure. Even when they're dead. So that's a body that we saw that was not very decayed, and they give you a card, and they touch the card to that body. So when you get that card, that's a 3rd degree relic. And then
isn't that interesting? The different degrees of relic. There's the actual body, and then there's
that's 1st degree,
and then there's like people that have touched the body.
Yeah, well, there's 2nd degree, which I believe is something that the saint owned. And then there's 3rd degree, which can either like touch the saint's body or touch something they owned. That's less clear. But it's still supposed to confer some holiness and grace on you.
Right, and that's just such an interesting, when you want to talk about pagan ideas and things like that, like the idea that, that these incorruptible bodies, that you can touch it and then all of a sudden get some sort of favor from God.
Right. Just because you touched it.
Yeah, that to me does not, that feels like real Bronze Age religion style. There.
Yeah, that doesn't sound very fair. And speaking of pagans, I did not know this, but in my research, I found that there are people that claim that Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris occupies the former site of an ancient Roman temple. And I have an article from the San Bernardino County Sun from December 4th, 1950, and it says a monument to Jupiter was actually excavated from beneath the cathedral in 1711.
The Pillar of the Boatmen is what they called it.
Oh.
And so it was about 5.25 meters high, 91 centimeters wide, and 70 more at the base. So, having to do the whole centimeter to inches conversion, I don't know, probably 6 inches wide, 91 centimeters. Oh, crap. I don't know. I'm sorry to anybody in Europe, but hey, we got our own system here, and it's what we got. So, but the thing is, they found that. And so they found that pillar, and it does have what looks like, it's a Roman column that looks like it's in honor of Jupiter by the Guild of Boatmen in the 1st century AD. So obviously, if you guys remember Julius Caesar, when he came back from France, he had conquered Gaul. And that was a big deal. That's why everybody thought Julius Caesar was the hot stuff, because he had conquered Gaul. He had conquered the French tribes that had lived there, and the Romans then were occupying France at the time. So, Lutetia was the name of the city that the Romans that eventually became Paris, and they. So there definitely were religious sites there's going to be there because the Romans had a bazillion gods. They had a god for every house. You had household gods, well, which is very similar to the Catholic saints. This idea that you have a saint that you can talk to, ask what that you can pray on your behalf.
Yeah, or you could just bury St. Joseph's upside down in your yard to sell your house.
Right, and people do that.
That's still being done today, yeah.
Yeah, people do that. I mean, that's just a tradition, and we have these ideas like, oh yeah, the Romans, there have been a billion gods, you know what I mean? But we got the saints in the Catholic Church, and it's the same kind of thing. So these wealthy boatmen or whatever, these traders and ship owners, they had a union, and so they made a pillar in honor of Zeus. And that's what was found. That was found in the site that eventually became Notre Dame. So
yeah, and I've heard too, like Graham Hancock talk a lot about sacred places and how they're often built atop earlier sacred places, and it goes on and on like that. So this is certainly one example of where they had a pagan temple and now they have Notre Dame, and maybe it is a sacred place because. In October 12th, 1914, so during the First World War, German airplanes were circling over Paris and dropping bombs. And several German airplanes circled over Paris and dropped these bombs, and the shells did not explode, and damage was slight. But the official report stated that 4 people were killed and 20 wounded, several of them seriously. But some of the bombshells also hit Notre Dame, and again, they did not explode. So it could have been much worse if the bombs had actually exploded. As it was, 4 people were still killed. But that bomb raid happened over Notre Dame, and so... how bummed are the Germans? Why didn't those bombs work when so many others did?
Right. We always hear such great things about German engineering.
Right. Not in that case. Or maybe there was some holy intercession going on. But it's sad that those 4 people didn't make it.
Well, of course.
Must have been bad seeds.
Yeah, right. But, so the thing is, when you take something like these holy relics, like the crown of thorns that Jesus wore, and the pieces of the flying cross there, and they probably got some saint bones, and all those different things that they had. So what happens is, or this is what was happening before there was a fire, and we don't know how long it's gonna take to replace it. But when you talk about something being saved, like Notre Dame was saved from the German from the German bombs, there also was that cross in the middle of the cathedral. Like everything else burned down around it, but the cross survived. And I bet that's going to be a famous picture now. That's going to be
Absolutely.
a meme.
People are still, yeah, it is memeing already. I've seen so many people share that picture and say the cross still stands.
You know, and it really is a beautiful cross. Like when I was looking through my pictures from Notre Dame today, I took a lot of pictures of candles. And then I took a picture of that big cross too.
And I wonder if there's a ghost photo that's out there that has a big cross in the middle. It's one of those really blurry photos, which is like so suspect, but it's got a big cross in front. And it was taken at Notre Dame Cathedral on a college trip. And there's two indistinct figures that the person, Luke is his name. The witness says when he took the photo of the cross, he did not see the two people standing on either side of it. And then suddenly he processed the film and he gets an entirely different image from what he had recalled photographing. There's these specter-like figures.
No, I'm looking at the picture right now.
To each side. To each side of the cross. So we'll have to include that in the show notes. But again, it's one of those proverbial blurry photos.
Well, you know, my picture from the cross actually at Notre Dame was blurry.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe God was just like messing with me. He's like, hey. But I'm looking at this ghost picture, and I don't believe it's that same cross that people were talking about. And
well, maybe not, because it's supposed to have Christ on it.
Yeah.
And the one that I saw was just a gold cross,
right.
And this has supposed to have Christ on it. Although it's hard to see in this picture, although you can still see the hands and a little bit of the arms.
Well, you know, and the thing is, this is also so the difference between a crucifix and a cross.
Yeah.
Is a cross is just a cross. A crucifix has a dead Jesus on it.
Right.
Or a suffering Jesus on it. And
absolutely.
You know, and that is an interesting picture because he says he doesn't remember anyone else. Anyone else in the room besides him and Jesus. And then it looks like it's two people who look like they're praying. And the woman looks like she's wearing like a head covering.
Yeah.
You know, so she looks like she's wearing a shroudish kind of thing.
Right, like the Virgin Mary.
Right, like the Virgin Mary. And the other guy looks like he's wearing, he's not wearing like a t-shirt and jeans. The other guy looks like he's wearing robes, like ceremonial robes. So
yeah. Although, two women are often reported, which might be from the tragedy in 1964, this other specter in the picture really seems to be more of a man, although it's pretty unclear.
Well, I like the idea that it's a tulpa. The tulpas that are created, like the Virgin Mary praying at the cross, is a perfect thing if you want to talk about how many millions of people have gone there and prayed every year.
And maybe the other one's Joseph.
Right. So Joseph he's giving her the side eye, like, Virgin, eh? Kind of thing. He's like,
no, her husband and the Virgin Mary mourning the death of their son.
Yes, right.
There you go.
Right. So he's not giving her the side eye.
No.
Like he's like, oh yeah, an angel came to you, hey? So that's a pretty cool ghost picture. But what I like at Notre Dame in particular, and I know a lot of other people like him, are the gargoyles.
Yeah,
outside.
They are really spectacular.
And one thing about those gargoyles is, first of all, there's two different kinds of things. There's gargoyles versus grotesques.
Yes, and that's a common mistake that people make. A lot of the famous so-called gargoyles are actually grotesque, because grotesque is just, an artistic addition, whereas a gargoyle actually has a function to channel rainwater off the building.
Yeah.
That's it.
So gargoyles have water spouts, and they're meant to be it's a rain drainage system. It's a super cool rain drainage system, and the reason that they're so grotesque, that they're all like gross looking, is they're supposed to be hybrids of imaginary creatures, supposed to be hybrids of dragons and a demon, a human and an animal.
Yeah, chimeras.
Yeah, they're supposed to be unnatural, is the point. And
right, but they're also there to protect the cathedral. They're there to be scarier than the demons. And I saw, somebody posted that maybe this fire happened because the gargoyles were taken away for the restoration and they weren't there to protect the cathedral anymore. But I don't know if that actually stands up to the facts, because I think it wasn't the gargoyles that were taken away, but there were several religious statues. I think the 12 apostles and a couple of other ones that were removed. So as far as I know, the gargoyles still remain in place, but hopefully they're okay because they're made out of stone.
Well, here's something cool that I hadn't heard before. In the 18th century, people stopped making gargoyles on buildings. And the reason they did that was because when gargoyles got damaged or they were getting old, they'd fall off the side of the building. And,
that's
and when you
bad.
have like a 100-pound stone thing falling off the side of the building, it's like the woman who threw herself from the tower at Notre Dame and killed the tourist.
Collateral damage from the building.
Right. So they stopped using them because they ended up being dangerous. But I liked it. I've never heard this before. The legend of Gargoyle. And so the legend of Gargoyle, where the word gargoyle comes from, is that Gargoyle was a dragon who had bat wings, a long neck, and could breathe fire. And one version of the story is that a chancellor of the king subdues the dragon using a crucifix. So not a cross, has to have the dead Jesus on him. So Jesus can say the power of Christ compels you to chill out. So he subdues La Gargouille with a crucifix and then brings the creature back to the city of Rouen, and they burn it. But the head and the neck don't burn because the dragon can breathe fire. So the head and the neck are impervious to fire. So because they can't burn the head and the neck, they cut the head off and they put it on the church wall to scare off evil spirits and to protect the church.
Right. To say, this is going to happen to you next, bub.
Right. So that's, that was a cool story about like how gargoyles came to be. And of course, gargoyles are featured in, did you ever see the Disney musical cartoon, The Hunchback of Notre Dame?
Nah, I'm not a big cartoon person.
All right. Well, actually, it's pretty good. I think Jason Alexander from Seinfeld, who did he play? George from Seinfeld plays like one of the gargoyles, and he's funny. And then The Hunchback of Notre Dame is a pretty good movie for a Disney movie. But the thing is, when we were researching it, you found out that The Hunchback of Notre Dame might be based on a real person.
Right. That was really a thrill to not that the Hunchback, like that Quasimodo was actually around in the 13th century or whatever, but that there was someone that Victor Hugo knew that inspired the character.
Well, what I think is interesting here is, number one, Notre Dame was not as big of a deal until this book came out. So it was kind of going into disrepair in the 19th century. And then The Hunchback of Notre Dame becomes a huge success in 1831. And then they start paying more attention to it and they start renovating it. And in fact, the spire that fell yesterday, that was built as a direct result of the renovations that were done to the church in the middle of the 1800s. And so, one of the reasons that it's such an architectural marvel, I mean, besides the flying buttresses,
I don't even know what that is, but it's fun to hear you say.
Yeah, a flying buttress is like it's like an arch that extends from a wall over a roof. So a flying buttress supports. It's like an arch that comes from a roof. Is it just an easy way to put it?
I think I know what they are.
Yeah, and so Notre Dame is a great example of the flying buttresses in architecture. But as far as the Hunchback of Notre Dame goes, so it becomes such a successful book that everybody wants to visit this beautiful cathedral. And this is how it becomes the most famous cathedral in the world. Because, Victor Hugo's novel, and then you get a very famous movie with Charles Laughton plays the Hunchback, and there's different adaptations over the years. The Disney musical was just the latest one, and it just makes it really popular. And the thing is, Victor Hugo, like Alexandre Dumas, and his Musketeers books, and the Count of Monte Cristo, and Victor Hugo also wrote Les Miserables. Those French books, as far as I remember growing up, they translate really well to English. And also, they're written in an exciting way. I mean, I don't know what it is, but it's not always all of 19th century literature. And I read a lot of 19th century literature in college, and not all of it's exciting. But for some reason, even, 190 years later, a lot of those books, even translated from the original French, are still exciting and really fun to read. So The Hunchback is a book that's lasted, almost 200 years as a popular piece of fiction, and that really made Notre Dame the most famous cathedral in the world because of this book. And so then it inspires the French to, okay, well, we got a famous cathedral. We're going to have to make this pretty sweet. So they renovate it. They even add a bunch of the more gargoyles, or more grotesques.
Oh yeah.
And so there's a great one, L'Estrage. I don't know if I'm saying it right. So sorry, Frenchies.
I think it might be. Sorry, French. Is it L'Estrige?
It might be L'Estrige.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
L'Estrige.
But we'll say whichever way makes it sound cooler.
Yeah. L'Estrige does sound pretty cool. And a lot of the French call him a vampire. But it's a pretty famous gargoyle. He's like sitting on his face is sitting on his hands. He's sticking out his tongue a little bit. He's got wings and a couple of horns. He
doesn't think much of Paris.
No, he's like, look at the city of lights.
His head is in his hands.
It's okay. It's created by Eugene Emmanuel Viollet-le-Duc, and he was the white guy who was responsible for the cathedral's restoration after the popularity of the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Now, we forgot to tell everybody where this real Hunchback of Notre Dame might have come from.
Yeah, so I was reading MiamiGhostChronicles.com.
As you do.
For some other sources as well, but they reported that in 1999, the discovery of a diary in Cornwall appears to reveal the real-life inspiration for the character of Quasimodo. And clues suggest that Quasimodo is based on a historical figure that may have been somebody that Victor Hugo came into contact with. It's been information about this person who was hunchbacked was uncovered in the memoirs of Henry Sibson, a 19th century British sculptor who was employed at the cathedral around the time the book was written, and he describes a hunchback stonemason also working there.
And he describes him as the most worthy, fatherly, and amiable man as ever existed. He was the carver under the government sculptor, whose name I forget, as I had no intercourse with him. All that I know is that he was humpbacked, and he did not like to mix with carvers. We find out that he calls him Monsieur le Bossu, and le Bossu is French for the hunchback, so he basically calls him Mr. Hunchback.
Mr. Hunchback.
Mr. Hunchy, a nickname given to him, and I scarcely ever heard any other. The chief of the gang, for there were a number of us, Monsieur le Bossu, was pleased to tell Monsieur Trajan that he must be sure to take the little Englishman. And, it's just a funny thing. So, Victor Hugo starts writing The Hunchback of Notre Dame in 1828. The book's published in 1831. He's interested in the restoration of the cathedral, and architecture is a major theme of the book. The gargoyles, the whole thing. The hunchback is the bell ringer that runs around, falls in love, things don't end well. Spoiler alert.
Well, so that didn't happen though, but
right. But there was a hunchback at Notre Dame.
Yeah, that really worked there. And there are other sources for it that I've found a whole bunch. So it does really seem to be a real archive. This journal that was uncovered in the Tate archives seems to show that there was somebody around that inspired the character of Quasimodo.
And so the last thing we should probably talk about today is Nostradamus, because Nostradamus never gets enough press, right?
I was waiting because, it's a French thing. And here we go. We've had a French tragedy. So it must be.
And if you guys don't know who
somewhere.
Nostradamus is, Michel de Nostradam, usually Latinized as Nostradamus, was a French astrologer, physician, and reputed seer who is best known for his book, Les Prophéties, a collection of 942 poetic quatrains allegedly predicting future events.
That pronunciation, I'm so sorry.
The book's first published in 1555. It's been, right, and almost 500 years later, we're still talking about Nostradamus.
Yeah.
And, and his silly prophecies and his silly quatrains. And, people are saying that he writes this quatrain and, let's see what he says.
Oh, yeah. There's a bunch of things on YouTube now.
Yes.
Notre Dame fire, shock, claim. Nostradamus predicted the disaster. Did Nostradamus predict the Notre Dame fire?
The head of Aries, Jupiter, and Saturn, God eternal, what changes can be expected? Following a long century, evil will return. France and Italy, what emotions will you undergo?
Yeah, it's kind of just a little bit vague.
Yeah.
It didn't say anything about fire. The only part that I thought was interesting was the reference to Jupiter, because as we said, this column exalting Jupiter was found there as a vestige of the former Roman temple. So that was like the only connection, though. I mean, yeah, you're going to go through emotions for any tragedy, of course. So I'm not sure how that connects with Notre Dame other than the Jupiter thing.
Well, they say there's astrological clues that point to 6:20 p.m. Monday, 15th, April 2019, like the head of Aries, Jupiter, and Saturn.
Oh, I see. So those were indicating
that
the astrology.
That it was April 15th. So Nostradamus, it's one of those things where people always say, like, okay, well, like right now it says that according to the horoscope, the astrological chart, oh man, I can't read astrological charts, but I do know that it's
That's okay, Mike.
Aries, Jupiter, and Saturn. Jupiter is in the house of religion, or whether Saturn is in Capricorn, which is like the house of monuments and tradition. And Aries is the sign of fire.
Oh, I see. So she's taking all these clues and putting into context of astrology.
Yeah.
And that's where she gets her ideas about it. Well,
and people are saying that evil has returned to us.
Yeah. There's evil everywhere all the time. So for me, British astrologer Jessica Adams, I don't know. It's just not a slam dunk. I need more.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just not a slam dunk. Yeah. Yeah. I'm feeling you there, Allison.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I'm feeling you there
vague.
that this is not a slam dunk. But it is an interesting perspective. Like I would not take that out of that particular quatrain, but I am not a Nostradamus expert.
Well, and it's a good way to end the show because, we've had ghosts, we have the devil, we have Quasimodo, relics, paganism, all this great stuff. And of course, when you're dealing with the French, you got to talk about Nostradamus.
You absolutely do. But the good news is, first of all, nobody died. Right?
Yes,
so this was not even as horrible as what happened when the German bombs fell on Notre Dame in, the First World War. So nobody died. Right. It just was very sad when the spire fell. But most of the relics were saved. The crown of thorns is saved, so we can still, you can go to Notre Dame and try it on. They let you wear the They let you wear the crown of thorns. You just have to make like a certain...
and take a selfie with the crown of thorns.
A certain dispensation to the church, you have to give away a little bit of money, and then they give you a crown of thorns. It's really something great. Anyway, so all that stuff is saved. Nobody died. It is sad that we did lose some beautiful architecture on the inside, but like I said, it's still probably not as bad as what they did during the French Revolution or when the Huguenots came there and started busting up the place because they didn't like the idea of relics. They found that too pagan. They found that too non-Christian, this idea of praying to things like the crown of thorns.
Right.
And so that's where they were cool with that. So,
yeah,
but
just like the terrorists wouldn't be cool with it these days, right?
Exactly.
But hey, hopefully, as we said, seems right now that they're leaning towards, accidental causes. So, like you said, no one got killed. A lot of things like the rose window was saved. Oh, hey, I gotta say this. If you haven't watched the OA yet, the rose window plays prominently in it.
Ooh,
so
fantastic.
It's kind of I've been having some synchronicities regarding that, the second season there. So do check that out because the rose window's in it.
Awesome. No, I was just looking at my picture of the rose window today, and I'll put some of those pictures in the show notes. You'll see on the othersidepodcast.com/144. And thanks for joining us today, Allison. It was a lot of fun talking to you.
Yeah, I love you, bro.
Love you too. So the song for this week, actually, we decided to take probably one of our sadder Sunspot songs this week. So we were talking about something that made a lot of people sad yesterday. Everybody was feeling very introspective. They were putting up pictures of themselves in front of the great cathedral. And people were just saying, what a tragedy. And so we thought, this song might fit pretty well. And so here's a song about feeling defeated.
Wanted to make you happy. Never looked directly into the heart of the sun. I'll never leave your battlefield before your fight's been won. And I've let the ghost that haunt me come visit me tonight. I wanna join their midnight dance. I wanna surrender under the moonlight. When will the war inside your heart ever end? Why must you fight it all alone? Can you feel your empty soul on your own? I let it beat it, torn and broken at your feet. Can I make you happy now? I let it beat it, you have brought me to my knees. I cannot fight you anymore. And I try to hide the bitterness that my heart holds. I'll try to regain the innocence that you bought and sold. And I try to pick my broken pieces up off the ground. Will you care? No, you won't care when they fall back down. When will the war inside your heart ever end? Why must you fight it all alone? I see the blood that's on my hands is my own. I let it beat it, torn and broken at your feet. Why can't I make you happy? Why can't I make you happy? I let it beat it, you have brought me to my knees. I cannot fight you anymore. I will not fight you anymore. I cannot fight you. I will not fight you. So why can't I just walk away? Does he do the things I never did? Does he make you feel wanted? Tell him to make you happy the way I never could. Even though you're standing next to me. Oh, even though you're standing next to me. Even though you're standing next to me. You're a million miles away. I know you're a million miles away. I let it bleed, it's torn and broken at your feet. Why can't I make you happy? Why can't I make you happy? I let it beat it, you have brought me to my knees. I cannot fight you anymore. I will not fight you anymore. Your difference has defeated me, and it is so simple with jury. I let defeated. I just wanted to make you happy. Oh, why can't I make you happy? I just wanted to make you happy. Oh, why can't I make you happy? I let defeated. Well, I let defeated. Well, I let defeated. Now that you have beaten me, now that you have victory, now that we are history, will you ever be happy? I let defeated.
Of course, I can't say goodbye without saying thank you to the See You on the Other Side Patreon community. Your support makes all the songs and the videos and the podcast and everything possible. Thank you very much for being part of that community. I got to give a shout out to my man, Dr. Ned. Ned.
We love you, Dr.
Yes,
Ned.
you are on the level of the Patreon where you get a shout out in every single episode. So thank you for being an executive producer on See You on the Other Side. We appreciate the support. And all you guys, we appreciate your support. Now, if any of you out there are not members of the Patreon community yet, first of all, what the hell is wrong with you? Second of all, it's really easy to join up. Just check out othersidepodcast.com/donate. We want to talk to you in our Facebook community. We'd love to hang out once a month during our Google Hangouts. Or actually, we now moved to Skype because Google Hangouts going the way of the dodo, of like Google Wave and all those kind of things in the past. And we're going to have some more surprises for our Patreon community in 2019 as the community develops. And the more Patreons we have, the more cool stuff we can do. So, yeah, we'd like to get to know you. And the Patreon community is a great way. You can see that at othersidepodcast.com/donate.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. You can find us online at othersidepodcast.com. Until next time, see you on the other side.